right? So gone are the days of brands telling consumers about brands, and it really is about consumers telling consumers. And so we use content and storytelling to start that conversation and start it beyond our platforms, right? To give them the content and the story and then carry the conversation for us. So hopefully this will start to inspire some branded content creation and storytelling for you guys. But our quick summary is just start with an insight. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. Right? Ours was a token. And then turn it into a narrative. So the whole story of choosing your token and Officer Mallory throwing him in jail really humanized the product. And people had a lot of fun with it. We opened it up, we let fans take it and vote, and people were rallying, right, and lobbying for their favorite token, and which led us to the idea of continuing to open the brand and get people to vote later on rules and later on properties. And you know, my background is traditional brand, but we all struggle with that a little bit, right? It's like a little scary to let your brand go to fans. You don't know what's going to happen. But we made a joke in the office, and we're like, you know, it's a one-click economy. We got to keep it simple. We got to tell fans what to do. But in a day where it's like one swipe right to happily ever after, how can we really be so precious about our brands, right? So we got to give consumers more vote. But being clear and prescriptive, keeping it simple, so our call to action was very easy. Go to Facebook, vote, right? There was no confusion, but we always told them what we wanted them to do to participate. And worry less about platforms. So we play with platforms. You know, we had a huge audience on Facebook. We started there, it made sense. We've done stuff with BuzzFeed, big audience, makes sense for scale. But they're agnostic, so we're really more focused on finding the consumers and being where the consumer are than worrying about, are we on Snapchat, are we on Facebook, is it Instagram? But I think we feel really excited about the amount of platforms and the amount of ways we can talk to consumers now. And then lastly is just be engaging. So we've tried different campaigns and they started and failed, right? But one of the things that we learned is you have to keep talking to the consumer. So it's like digital and real life, right? If we walked up to each other on the street and I said, hi, I'm Tina, and you said, hi, I'm so-and-so, and then I walked away, it would be so weird. So don't do that in digital either, right? That was the learning for us, is you gotta start the conversation and then see it through to the end. So this is just one fun story. It was a lot of fun to work on, and hopefully will inspire some authentic branded content for you guys. I think now Brian's gonna come back out.
Here I am.
Here he is.
Well, thank you. I think that was actually for you, not for me. So that was a very interesting story about a brand that's beloved. Could you have done that if it wasn't a beloved brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think we create as marketers that feeling of beloved, right? It's our job to create the emotional connection. And so we do use content and storytelling to develop that. I mean, there's no other reason Mr. Monopoly would be beloved, right? But it's finding the story, connecting with consumers through that story. But I do believe, and we believe, that you can find that insight in any brand.
Okay, so you talked a lot about what went right. Give me something that went wrong.
I started to talk a little bit about engagement, right? And so that was a learning for us, and clarity. So we've tested different concepts, and there's been times where we've kind of put out a call to action for UGC, and then no one participates. And it's like throwing a party and no one comes, right? It's so embarrassing, it's so sad. And it really was either we weren't clear enough on what we wanted them to do. Sometimes we were too open-ended. So putting some definitive guardrails and direction for a consumer, I think, is an example of somewhere we've improved.
Mm-hmm. So some of us who are at a certain age know Mr. Monopoly and stuff like this. How do you sort of think about modernizing? I know he's looking a lot different. We moved on from the slide, but he's looking a lot different from I remember him. So you've sort of pepped him up a little bit, but he's still an old guy. Was there any sort of thoughts about actually modernizing him in a different direction?
Totally. So, as you mentioned, he's had a little bit of touch-up, right? Now he's super cute.
Just like the brush stash
yeah,
that I remember.
But he's like sleeker. So we'll do small tweaks to the brand, but as much as we want to contemporize, Monopoly is America's favorite brand, so we don't want to take it too far. Mm-hmm. So we are careful to protect and not move too far. And then I would say through story, right? And we talked a little bit this morning about different kinds of content and where to invest. And so we do try different ways to story, different ways to humanize, different ways to make him the expert on money or property. And so I think just having him feel like a real person has helped the game sort of evolve with people.
So we're having Brian on next from JP Morgan Chase, so I mean he can talk exactly. He and Mr. Monopoly, you know, very
Brian,
similar
let's do
challenges.
content programs together.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Monopoly will be the
That was
expert.
also something interesting. Do you see more opportunities to do those kind of brand partnerships? I mean, you talked about brands organically getting involved in your campaign, but what are the opportunities to have more, you know, set from the beginning, sort of, you know, brand partnerships?
Yeah, I think as we talk about letting go control over some of our brands more and being where consumers are and not expecting them to always come to our platforms, an example of that is we recently announced for Transformers a partnership with Machinima. And Machinima is going to take the brand, they're going to create and distribute a story across their platforms. And so that's a completely different approach to how we would have thought about content in the past. You know, they're a partner, they're taking our brand, they're creating content for their audience based on our IP.
Okay, I want to open it up to questions. We have a couple of microphones, and Dave, you can be the first question of the inaugural Digiday Content Marketing Summit.
Well, it's a
No pressure,
monopoly
Dave.
question, of course. In year one, you changed one of the pieces. In year two, when you got ideas about what house rules were, did you change any of the rules?
We did.
What rules did you change?
I can't recall specifically what all the rules were, but they were things like free parking that had been ways that we all knew consumers played around the world, and we put them actually officially in the box. We made them legit.
Have you had to shorten the game at all because of shortened attention spans?
Well, so what we learned was the game was so long because everybody was playing wrong. They were playing by their house rules, and if they had played by the real rules of the game, it wouldn't have been 4 days.
It doesn't last like, oh. Wow, there goes my childhood.
Hi, just 2 quick questions. One is, are you at all looking at Hasbro's brand in this as you do this, or is a lot of it going to be brand by brand? And when it is by brand, are you mostly applying a lot of this more modern thinking to the products that have a younger demo, who are more likely to engage in these, you know, platforms?
We do consider ourselves a house of brands, not a branded house. So we drive Monopoly, right? We drive the individual brand names. And our focus primarily is around our franchise brands, so that's our big corporate strategy. So we have a key focus and a calling each year. We know we're going to focus on, you know, Monopoly and Nerf and My Little Pony and Littlest Pet Shop. There's 7 of them total. So it's not so much about audience as it is corporate focus, and then finding the story that meets our business objectives.
Okay. Do you have a question? I'm just kidding. Anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, quick question. From the discussion we had in town hall, how much of this campaign or the content idea was driven by agencies, and how your team was involved in it, and how's the model evolving now? Are you doing more work internally, or it continues to be with agency partners?
It's actually really collaborative between us and agencies. So this idea came in-house, and then we execute it with agency partners, right? So they're pretty embedded. We think of them as an extension of us, although they're in our building a lot. They do have their own offices, but the ideas can come from anywhere, and then we'll typically partner with them to execute.
Okay.
I think one of the things that really makes me excited about content and the state of content, other than all of this explosion means that I have a job, is you know, we're having really good, honest conversations about it. So I love some of the talk we're having in the Forbes room earlier, right? Where everyone's admitting this is all new and we're all learning. And so I just think that's really good and smart to remember. And what we're saying today is going to be different this time next year when we're all regathered here. And so I think that's been a really powerful just thing, you know, where you don't see that many smart people in a room saying, we don't know, we're gonna try this. And maybe it's gonna fail, and then we're gonna do it differently the next time. And so I think it's a really fun time for us to all be marketers.
And it's a perfect advertisement for the second Digiday Content Marketing Summit. One more question in the back.
Hi, great presentation, so thank you. And thanks for keeping the thimble. For some reason, I always love the thimble, and I have absolutely no idea why. I think one of the great challenges to content marketing is our addiction to paid media, right? And because you know what you're going to get. You spend X dollars, you get X impressions, et cetera. How did you get your team to get over the hurdle and into the unknown of what was going to come out of this?
That's a good question. So I don't think we're getting out of it. I think, you know, it's a blend of it all, and I think we have dollars that are still reserved for paid, but I think we're testing a lot of stuff to understand the value and how we can earn more media. And so we're doing that through a ton of different channels, through, you know, various micro content that we can A/B test and figure out what stories and what platforms work. I think we do it through longer, you know, format storytelling online. We're still using multiple platforms, so TV. So we still have a lot of paid in the mix. We haven't moved 100% earned.
Okay, Tina, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
guys.
Okay, so I think that was a very